In our efforts to give our kids a better life than the life that we had, did we unintentionally set them up for failure and disappointment?
Our generation can often be heard complaining about the next generation's lack of dedication and work ethic. But are we really the ones to blame? Stick around for our take on it. So good morning. You know, there's lots of people out there who think that the mountains and oceans are beautiful. But I'll tell you what, there's nothing like a walk out in rural Iowa to give you a different perspective on that. We think this is pretty beautiful.
Yeah.
And we spent the weekend up in Iowa at a family reunion.
Yeah.
And we're out for our walk, so it's time to talk. I'm Rich.
And I'm Robbie. And you found our channel before it's too late.
With our channel, we're just trying to share our life experience a little bit and maybe some lessons learned, mistakes made, in hopes of encouraging other people of our generation, younger, older, whatever, and knowing that you're not alone out there. So if you get anything from this video, we'd really like it if you'd hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you know when we put out a new one. And I've really started to be encouraged by the comments that people are making on our videos and the interaction that I'm able to have with people. So keep that coming too. So it's a pretty common desire and I guess thought for people that you want to raise your kids to have a better life than you had. So in doing that, this video is about, you know, what did we do that may have actually had the opposite effect, I guess. So, but before we get into it, we probably need to share with you our perspective, our 50-something-year-old perspective on how we were raised.
Right. And how that affected the way that we wanted to raise our kids.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. For me, I grew up in Iowa. I grew up on a farm and it was pretty simple. Farm life was amazing. I wouldn't trade it for the world. But with that came a lot of really, really hard work. And there was a lot of responsibility at a young age. And I don't know if pressure is the right word, but there just was a lot placed on you, I think, even as a young child, of the things that needed to be done. And I remember, you know, in my teen years thinking, I don't want to marry a farmer because I don't want my kids to grow up with that same pressure and responsibility on them. And so in my head, I wanted to raise my kids differently in hopes that they had a better life. So it did factor into the way that I parented. Yeah, so another part of my upbringing was in my teenage years, we were expected to have a job. And in order to have anything extra for the things that we wanted to do above and beyond, you know, normal shelter, food, that kind of stuff, we did. My siblings and I, we all had jobs at a very early age, as soon as we could, actually. And there was just a lot with that because you were in high school, you were, you know, trying to do things and be with your friends. Plus, you had this job you were going to all the time, and that was also another thing too, that I just didn't want that pressure put on my kids. It taught me a lot about responsibility, though. I mean, I got to say that. It taught me a ton about how to manage money, taught me a lot about responsibility. And I mean, looking back, I'm grateful that I had all of that because it definitely did shape the way I am as an adult, but it also did affect the way that I wanted to raise my kids.
And for me, it was, I've said in previous video that I consider myself growing up, you know, very middle class. My dad was in public service and my mom was a stay-at-home mom, but honestly, I don't remember ever really wanting for anything. But I also don't remember asking
Yeah.
for a bunch of stuff. I was fortunate, and I when I turned old enough to be able to drive, they did buy me a car. But then after that, it was my job to put gas in it. It was my job to take care of the expenses related to it. And honestly, that took some pressure off of them because of the activities
Yeah.
and things that I could get to on my own. And also, 14, 15, 16, I started working and earning my own money to be able to do some of those things. So it probably took some pressure off of my parents. So, but again, there were choices that we were making back then. Like you're not doing everything you want to do because you had your job or you had
responsibilities.
Yep.
And or you didn't, if you wanted to buy certain things, you didn't, and your parents were like, no, I'm not buying that for you. You had to make a choice, right?
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's, what kind of sparked this topic for me. And then as I discussed it with Robbie was, we were having a conversation at my men's Bible study about, just life. And it came up and I made the comment that sometimes I feel like I spoiled my kids. And I don't mean that they're bad.
No.
Like none of our kids, we're very proud of all of our kids, and the decisions they're making are, for the most part, really good ones, and they're setting their life up very well. Robbie's kids are in their 30s,
29 and 32. Yeah.
And mine are in their early and mid 20s, and I'm not fearful that they're broken in any way, that they're not going to do well, but still there was just this sense of, did I make things too easy for them?
Yeah.
Right. In an effort to make it better, was I really just making it easier?
And that goes hand in hand with that conversation you had with your friend.
Yeah. So the buddy of mine, then he shared a conversation that he had with his daughter, and the daughter said something to the effect, and obviously I'm going to paraphrase because I wasn't there, but something to the effect of, well, isn't it your job or your desire to make my life easier? And he said to her, no, it's our job to prepare you to take kind of the same circumstances we had. If given those circumstances, you'll do better with them because we'll share the lessons that we learned along the way to allow you to not make the same mistakes.
Right.
And then as that conversation continued, his daughter said, well, isn't that the same thing? And he said, no, it's really just the opposite.
Yeah.
And that got me thinking. And it also made me think that there's probably a lot more people out there, in similar circumstances in this stage of our life that are feeling the same way.
Right.
Like, have we done the right thing?
Right. And I think as we've talked about it, it's made both of us kind of think about, okay, the way we did parent and how hard we worked to try and make their life what we thought was better, right? Because we wanted them to have the things that they had. We didn't want them to have maybe as much pressure on them as we felt, or as teenagers or as kids growing up. So and that meant that we sacrificed a lot of time. We sacrificed money, financial, to be able to provide for them and do the things that they wanted. And again, not that we raised little spoiled brats, because our kids are great, but it does make you think, gosh, should I have done things a little differently?
Yeah. I mean, for example, when I was raising my girls, I unintentionally, I think their mother and I kind of made them the center of the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Like,
same here.
If they wanted to do a sport, it was like, okay, what do we do? How do we get you the instruction you need to do that sport? If they, needed some of our time, even if it was in conflict with something else we needed to do, we kind of broke our backs to be able to do that for them. And I think that's every parent's desire, is you want to give that time to your kid, and the resources that you work so hard for, what better way to expend them than on your kids, right?
Yep.
But also, and again, in my case, the girls had to do some things, like they got jobs,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't, it wasn't because they weren't getting pretty much everything they wanted anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Um,
And same here. My kids both had jobs as well, and they did have that responsibility, but yet there was, yeah. I mean, we talked about this a little bit too. Um, you know, if suddenly the kids wanted an Xbox, but we didn't have the money for it at that time, even though we said no, you can't have one right now. Um, we both talked about how that we would definitely
it
kind of,
filed away in the back of our
yes,
mind that they wanted it.
yep, and
And maybe,
eventually they got it.
yeah, and maybe we said, well, you're going to have to wait for Christmas. So you're going to have to wait for your birthday
Easter,
or whatever. Yeah.
yeah,
And then, yeah, so sometimes it didn't fall in line with the birthday or Christmas. So you say, well, I can get that thing that they wanted now.
yeah,
So let's get them an Easter present. Right.
right,
So, it felt good and it felt like we were
yeah,
doing the right thing. And I'm not saying we were doing the wrong thing.
yeah,
I'm just saying I don't think we realized the unintended consequences of it.
right, mm-hmm.
And now there are times, and I can think of times with all of our kids, where they come to us with a problem,
Mm-hmm.
and they say, here's what we're seeing, here's the problem, and we're like, how did you get to this point in your life and never have to have that problem yet?
Yeah,
Right. And I think that's kind of what's made us think about this is
right, right,
in our effort to give them a better life, we really made their life super easy,
yeah,
or it feels like we did. I mean,
yeah,
they may have a different perspective,
yeah,
right? It feels like we made their life easy, and they haven't had to deal with prioritizing things
mm-hmm.
or
Disappointment,
or just the crap that life throws at you.
because
You know?
life is crappy. There's things that happen in life
Yeah.
that it's not a piece of cake all the time, right?
Yeah, and sometimes it just feels like the way that we raise them, and I think if they were being honest, if they said to us, "Hey, I want an Xbox,"
Mm-hmm.
they knew that at some point they were going to get an Xbox.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It wasn't a question of not going to happen because mom and dad said no.
Yeah, it was a question of, I wonder when they're going to give that to me.
Right. Okay, so now we've kind of blathered on and on about the problem. And honestly, I don't know that we have the answer to the problem or the way to avoid this conundrum for new parents, if somebody's watching it. But I think now we're just at the point, so, okay, we did this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now what?
Yeah, and I think, at our age, we're in our 50s and we have grown children out of the house. And a big thing for us is, what do we do? What do we do? Every night we pray over these kids. I mean, we pray for each and every one of them. And we just have to trust that we think we tried to do the best we could when we were raising them, and we just have to give it to God. And that's the easiest, that's the only thing I can do. And I think you agree with that.
Yeah, I think, and also I think something that's been kind of on my heart lately, and I think it's that we're going to have a conversation with our kids.
Yeah.
And we're going to tell, and it's not going to be a surprise to them. I mean, for sure, I know Robbie's kids and mine, I've been around long enough to know that they know that when something's on my mind, there'll be a conversation.
Yeah.
But I want to have a conversation with them about almost a sort of a backhanded apology. Like, I'm sorry for making your life so easy because I didn't really prepare you for the pitfalls.
Yeah.
And in that way, I kind of feel like I failed. So maybe sort of a message of encouragement. I've mentioned that sometimes I'm thinking of it at this moment in my life as maybe I failed them. I don't think that's necessarily true, in the big picture. So don't take this as me wagging my finger at anybody, because I definitely did some things in error. But you know what? I think I did a pretty good job overall as well.
Yeah.
But I guess the thing is, the conversation needs to be about be real. Like, you have to take the time to prioritize some things, you know, unless you're just one of those people that's born with a silver spoon in their mouth. You're going to have to wait for things. And as an adult, you do have to prioritize, and you have to get your finances in order before you buy the fun things or before you do the fun stuff. You know, or you have to, you're going to have to miss out on some things if you haven't, if you don't have the funds or if you don't have the time.
Right.
You know, everything isn't.
It's about choices.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So as we're coming towards the end of our walk here, and we're going to wrap this up, I guess the message that we want to give to people is you're not alone.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are people out there who will hear what we talked about today and say, yeah, I've had those same thoughts, and did I fail? I don't think you failed, right? And I definitely don't think we failed. I just think it's something to think about.
Yeah.
You know, and it's something to share with your kids so that maybe as they are
raising
theirs,
yeah,
they don't have this thing in their 50s where they say, you know, was I too easy on my kids? And does making life easy may actually translate to making it harder later than making it better.
Yeah.
And you know,
and it's not about making it easier for them. I mean, the desire is to make it better for them, right?
Right. And
but
preparing them is what's going to make it better rather than doing for them all the time.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so thanks for tuning in. We're looking forward to reading your comments and your experiences. You know, again, maybe we're way off base. Maybe it's only me and my friend that have these thoughts. But we'd love to hear from you. Leave us a comment. And again, if you're this far and you haven't subscribed, I hope you do. And we'll see you again next time. God bless.